The skies once glowed with silver ships and golden towers. Trade stations blinked like stars across the galaxy. Food, medicine, and clean water flowed like rivers between planets. But now, all of it was gone. No more signals, no more ships, no more rules. It started with the virus. Not the kind that made people sick, but one that attacked the galaxy's systems. A digital plague. It hit power grids, broke down machines, and shut down the entire galactic trade network. Then came the silence. Then came the chaos. On a broken, moon-orbiting planet Reese, two alien girls stumbled through the Lyra. The older one had a long tear on her cloak and dried blood on her knees. Her skin, once silver blue and glowing, now looked pale and cracked. Her younger sister, Tally, dragged her feet beside her, her small arms shaking from cold and hunger. They had eaten nothing in 2 days. They had lost their mother in a riot. Their home was burned down by hungry mobs. Their planet's leaders gone, either killed or vanished into deep space. No one answered their distress signals. No help came. It was a world where the strong stole, the weak begged, and the kind ones died first. "We have to keep walking," Lyra said softly, her voice rough from thirst. "Where?" Tally whispered. "There's nothing left." They passed wrecked market stalls and old bones. Smoke still rose from a fallen transport shuttle. Somewhere far away, a creature howled in hunger. The girls didn't stop. If they stopped, they would freeze. Or worse. Then through the fog, they saw something strange. A light dot. It was not the blinking red of a fallen drone. It was warm and flickering like fire, cooking fire. They followed it, almost crawling. Their eyes widened when they saw the source. A small food stall, wooden, patched with old metal sheets. A single pan sat over fire. A man stood behind the counter, flipping something that sizzled. The smell hit them like lightning meat. Real meat. The girls dropped to their knees. The human turned. He wore rough armor, a long coat, and a half-burned military badge on his chest. His face had a short beard and a scar over one eyebrow. His eyes were sharp but tired. He looked at the girls. They didn't say a word. Instead, Lyra bowed her head, pushed her sister behind her, and with trembling hands, unclipped the torn fabric around her shoulder. The human's eyes narrowed. "What are you doing?" he asked. Lyra didn't lift her head. We can't pay," she whispered. "But we will do what you want. Just feed my sister." The man didn't answer. The fire cracked. Tally hid her face in shame. Lyra's hands shook. She thought he was going to laugh or worse, but instead she heard metal clink on the counter. Then something warm was placed in her hand. Bread. She looked up, confused. "Eat," the man said. "You don't need to give me anything." Lyra blinked. "But we know. But you're just kids. Eat." He tossed a thick, hot piece of meat into a bowl, added some stew, and handed it to Tally. Tally cried before the first bite even touched her lips. Lyra sat still, the warm bread in her hand, steam rising from it. "Why? Why would you help us?" she asked. The human sighed. "Because someone helped me once when I had nothing, and because I'm not like the others." The girls ate. Slow at first, then faster. Then tears fell down both of their cheeks. "What's your name?" Lyra asked, mouth full. "Jaren," he replied. "You?" "I'm Lyra." "She's Tally. We're all that's left." Jaren looked at the girls for a long time. He said nothing. But deep inside he knew. This wasn't just a war story. This was a rescue waiting to happen, and it had just begun. The fire crackled as morning light crept through the ash-gray sky. Jaren sat beside his food stall, sipping lukewarm broth. From a cracked metal mug, his rifle leaned against a crate within arm's reach. The air smelled of cooked meat, oil, and dust. But now, it also carried something else, something new. A softness, a presence. 2 alien girls still slept under his thick tarp. He had found them nearly frozen the night before. They'd offered their bodies for food, but he'd only offered stew and warmth. Now, watching their fragile forms huddled together beneath blankets, he realized something. They were more than hungry. They were hunted. He didn't ask many questions last night, but he could see it in their eyes. The fear wasn't just from starvation. It was the kind that lived in people who had seen things no one should see. The older one, Lyra, stirred first. Her silver-blue skin was dulled with dirt and exhaustion. Her eyes opened, alert like a soldier's. She sat up slowly, clutching the blanket around her. "You didn't touch us," she said softly. "Nope," Jaren replied, not looking directly at her. "You needed food, not shame." She blinked. "You're human."
Oh.
"What gave it away?" "My beard, or my smell." He joked. Lyra didn't smile. "You're the first human I've seen since the collapse." Jaren nodded. "Same. Haven't seen one of my own in months. Guess we're all ghosts now." The younger sister, Tally, awoke with a soft cough. Jaren tossed her a warm ration bar. She grabbed it like treasure. "You cook real meat?" she asked between bites. "Rat? Big ones. Not your royal kind of meat, but it doesn't kill you." Lyra's eyes widened. "You hunt?" Jaren nodded. "I build traps, crate with scavengers, clean it, cook it. That's how I keep this stall going." Lyra glanced around. The stall was simple but well fortified. Metal plates as walls, a solar battery half buried in a corner, and smoke vents that looked handcrafted. "You built all this alone?" she asked. "Didn't have a choice," he replied. "When everything fell, I was left behind on this moon. Everyone else jumped ships. I stayed. Someone had to." Lyra studied him, still unsure. She was used to beings who lied, who smiled while stabbing you. But this man, he seemed broken in a different way. Quietly strong, not trying to impress. He poured her hot broth. She hesitated, then drank. Suddenly, a loud screech echoed in the distance. Lyra froze. Tally whimpered and clung to her sister. Jaren stood immediately and grabbed his rifle. "It's just a sandcrawler." "Big, loud, but dumb," he said. But Lyra didn't relax. "No," she whispered. "That sound? I've heard it before." Jaren raised an eyebrow. She looked at him. "That's not a crawler. It's a signal, a tracker drone. They're looking for survivors." "Scavengers? No. Slavers." Jaren's face darkened. "Then they'll smell food, fire, and come straight here." Lyra stood up, fists clenched. "We'll leave. You've helped enough. They catch us here, you're not going anywhere." Jaren cut her off. "You'll just walk into their arms. Then what do we do?" Jaren looked out at the pale sky. He didn't like playing hero. He wasn't one. But something inside him had changed the moment these girls ate his food and cried like children. He couldn't let that innocence be stolen again. "We hide you. There's a storage cellar under the cooking pit. They come, I'll deal with them." Lyra stared at him. "Why would you do that for us?" Jaren didn't answer for a moment. Then he looked her in the eyes. "Because in a world this broken, someone has to give a damn." That evening, long shadows fell across the dry land. Jaren buried the fire pit's heat, covered it with debris, and laid out old weapon parts on the table, just in case. In the underground crawlspace, Lyra and Tally sat quietly. Tally whispered, "Do you think he's really that kind?" Lyra didn't answer, but for the first time in days, she felt something return. Not warmth, not hope, but trust. The metal hatch closed above them with a soft clunk, cutting off the faint light from the surface. Inside the underground crawl space, it was quiet, cold, and dark until Jaren slipped them a lantern through the hidden panel. It lit up the narrow chamber just enough to see each other's faces. The walls were lined with old cargo blankets and empty ration tins. It wasn't much, but it was safe. Lyra pressed her back against the wall, eyes locked on the trapdoor above. Tally curled up beside her, half asleep, half scared. "I don't like hiding," Tally whispered. "I don't either," Lyra replied softly, brushing her sister's white hair away from her face. "But the human, he's risking himself for us." Tally looked up. "Do you trust him?" Lyra paused. "No," she said, "but I want to." Above them, Jaren stood at his stall as dust swirled around his boots. The air smelled different, now tainted, disturbed. He checked the power cell on his rifle again. It was nearly drained. Footsteps approached. Heavy ones. At least 3 sets. Jaren didn't flinch as 3 figures emerged from the haze tall, armored and carrying stun spears. They looked like mercs, but moved like hunters. Their eyes scanned the camp like wolves searching for prey. "You run this place?" one asked in a gravel voice. "I do," Jaren answered calmly. "Been tracking heat signatures," the merc said. "Unregistered. Female, alien, might have passed through here." Jaren's face didn't change. Lots of people pass through. Some eat, some steal, some die. "What makes you think I remember their faces?" One of the others stepped forward and slammed a spiked glove into Jaren's counter, cracking the old wood. "You lie," he growled. "We smell them. 2 young ones. Valuable runaways." Jaren reached down slowly and picked up a dirty plate. "Smells like rat stew to me," he said, scraping leftovers into a bin. "You want to buy a meal or start a war?" The mercs stared at him. Silence, finally. The lead one grinned, sharp teeth showing. "We'll check the area, if we find them." "You're hiding them." Jaren didn't blink. "Then what?" The grin faded. The mercs moved on, stomping toward the edge of the camp. Jaren watched until they disappeared. Then he exhaled. Hours passed before he opened the hatch again. Lyra and Tally blinked up at him. "They're gone," he said. Now they climbed out one by one. Jaren handed them warm water and a small bowl of soup each. "You didn't tell them," Lyra said quietly. "No." "Why?" Jaren sat down on an overturned crate and stirred the fire. "I used to be a soldier," he said. "I've seen what happens to the weak when the strong make rules. I promised myself I'd never be like those mercs. Never again." Tally sipped her soup slowly. Lyra sat across from Jaren, staring into the firelight. "You gave us food," she said. "A warmth, safety, even your time." She looked up at him, eyes serious. "But you didn't take anything." Jaren looked confused. "Why would I?" "Because that's the world now," Lyra said. "Give and take. You help someone, they pay. They can't pay, they sell what they have, even if all they have is their body." Jaren's jaw tightened. "That's not how I live, but it's how everyone else does," she said. "Even my uncle tried to sell me before he died." The fire popped, top tall. I leaned on her sister's arm. "We're tired of being things," she said in a small voice. "Things to trade, things to touch." Jaren stood and went to the corner of the stall. He opened a small chest and pulled out 2 wrapped packages. Inside were 2 clean shirts stitched from old uniforms. "Put these on," he said. "You're not things. You're not tools. You're not shame." He handed them the clothes. "You're girls. And you deserve dignity." Later that night, while Tally snored softly in the corner, Lyra sat near the fire. Jaren was fixing a cracked power coil. "Why do you still help us?" she asked. He didn't look up. "You're not the only ones I helped. You have others." "No," he replied. "The others didn't make it." She stayed quiet. He finally added, "Helping you makes me feel like maybe I can do one thing right in this broken galaxy." Lyra looked at the stew pot, then at him. "I'll help," she said. "Tomorrow, cooking, cleaning, you won't have to feed us for free." Jaren gave a tired smile. "Deal." And for the first time since the collapse, the fire in the camp didn't just keep them warm. It made them feel human again. The sun rose like a dull red bruise over the sky. Dust storms had passed, leaving behind silence and scattered bones. But today, the old scavenger market reopened for trading for those who dared to walk its broken paths. A place where no credits mattered, and everything had a price. Scrap, pain, and even people. Jaren stepped out of the stall with his worn coat and rifle slung across his shoulder. Beside him walked Lyra, now wearing one of his spare shirts, sleeves too long but her chin held high. Tally trailed behind with a wide-eyed stare, hugging a cloth sack. "I'm only taking you to the outer stalls," Jaren warned. "Stay close. Speak little. If anyone touches, you tell me." Lyra nodded silently. They entered the market. The place was a twisted maze of rusted starship parts, melted signs, and burned-out vendor booths. Traders shouted offers in half a dozen alien tongues. A one-eyed cyborg sold recycled oxygen tanks. A clawed lizard creature was haggling for clean water. And, near the center, under a half-collapsed tower, a crowd gathered around a cage where a girl no older than Tally begged for release. Tally froze. Lyra stepped in front of her. "This place is poison," Lyra muttered. Jaren didn't disagree. He led them toward a merchant who dealt in medicine and batteries. The vendor, a bulky insectoid creature with twitching antennae, gave Jaren a nod. "You brought guests," it rasped. "Unusual ones?" "They're with me," Jaren replied, placing an old fusion core on the counter. "I need burn gel, 3 water packs, and a stim shot." The insectoid clicked its jaws. "That fusion core is weak. The girls, they're worth more." Jaren's hand hovered near his rifle. "They're not for sale." "Then you should not bring them here," the creature hissed. "This market smells weakness." Jaren didn't respond. He just took the supplies, threw a few extra wires onto the pile, and led the girls away. As they turned, a voice called out, Well, I didn't think I'd see royalty in a place like this." Lyra stopped cold. A tall alien male with purple robes and golden piercings stood in their path. He was smiling, but his eyes were cruel. "I know that face," he said. "Daughter of House Valrune, the mighty bloodline of the Spiral Thrones, or what's left of it." Lyra didn't speak. Jaren stepped between them. "You know her?" "Yes," the noble said with a bow. "Her family ruled half this quadrant, until the collapse. Now look at her. In a human's clothes, walking like a servant." Jaren clenched his fists. "You want something?" "I want what everyone wants," the alien chuckled. "A piece of the past, a trophy of better times." "How much for her?" Lyra's face went pale. Tally grabbed her arm, scared. Jaren's voice dropped low. "She's not for sale. Neither of them are." The noble's smile faded. "Everything is for sale in this world, human. Not to me." They stared each other down. Then, without warning, the noble spat at the ground and turned away. "You'll regret this," he muttered. Jaren kept walking, not looking back. They reached the edge of the market before Lyra finally spoke. "That man knew my father. You really are royalty?" Jaren asked. Lyra nodded slowly. My family ruled planets through alliance and trade. But when the network crashed, our allies vanished. Pirates took our ships. The guards ran. Only my sister and I escaped. Jaren raised an eyebrow. So you're not just some refugee? You're the last heir of a dying house. Lyra looked down. A house that no longer exists. Tally whispered, "Are we still royalty if no one bows to us?" Jaren knelt in front of her. "You're more than titles. You're alive. That's rare enough now." They returned to the stall by late afternoon. As Lyra organized the new supplies, Jaren stared out at the horizon. That noble wouldn't forget today. And if Lyra's name still had weight, someone would come looking. That night, as they ate quiet dinner under the stars, Lyra said, "Why didn't you ask more when I first arrived?" Jaren shrugged. "Didn't need to. People with broken eyes carry whole stories." She looked at him. "Do you think it's wrong to still want dignity, even when you're starving?" Jaren stirred the stew and replied, "No. Wanting dignity is the last sign you haven't turned into an animal." She smiled a little. Maybe not everything was broken. Not yet. The moon hung low that night, orange and cracked like a dying eye. Wind whispered through the dead trees outside Jaren's stall. The market had gone quiet. Too quiet. Inside, the fire burned low. Jaren was cleaning his rifle. Tally slept under the counter, curled up in blankets, holding an empty soup bowl. Sat beside the cooking pot, sharpening a bent kitchen blade. She wasn't a warrior, but the world had taught her to prepare. "Do you think that noble from the market will come back?" she asked. Jaren didn't look up. "No?" Lyra frowned. "Really?" He finally raised his eyes, atoned. "I don't think he'll come back. I know he will." Outside, a shadow moved. They came in silence. 4 of them, not mercenaries, not slavers. These were hunters trained to take without warning, to kill without noise. Their boots made no sound as they crept. Across the sand, their eyes glowed faint green through visors. Each held a silencer pistol and a long blade on their hip. Inside, Jaren whispered, "Stay down, no matter what you hear." Lyra grabbed Tali and pulled her behind a crate. Jaren kicked over the stew. Pot-boiling broth splashed across the floor, sizzling against the cold stone. Then he turned off the fire, wrapped his coat around his arm, and took position behind the door. Tap, ... tap, ... a soft knock, ... a soft knock, ... jar. You didn't move. Then crash, the door burst inward. One figure dove in, lonely to be met with a boiling ladle of stew straight to the face. He screamed as his visor melted into his skin. Jaren slammed the butt of his rifle into the man's head, knocking him cold. Another hunter rushed in through the side panel, but Jaren was ready. He fired once, clicked dead. Power cell. He grabbed the rifle by the barrel and swung it like a club. The hunter blocked but Lyra, without thinking. Threw the kitchen knife straight into his neck. Blood sprayed across the wall. The man fell, gurgling. Jaren looked at her. "You just saved my life." "I was aiming for his arm," she whispered. "Remind me not to make you angry." Outside, the other 2 hunters heard the screams. One tossed a smoke grenade through the roof. The stall filled with thick gray gas. Lyra covered Tally's mouth. Jaren grabbed an old helmet and yelled, "Out the back! Crawl under the fuel drum!" They dropped down a hatch behind the counter, sliding into a narrow passage Jaren had dug. Weeks ago, but it wasn't finished. The tunnel ended behind a large barrel, half buried, blocked on the other side. Nowhere else to run. The smoke thickened. Footsteps echoed. Then a voice calm, cold, and mocking. "I told you, human," the noble from the market said as he stepped into the ruined stall. Everything has a price, and you've wasted mine. He held a pulse pistol in one hand, a tracker in the other. They are not your property. Jaren growled. No, the noble said. They are mine by blood. Her father owes me. I took his ships. Now I take his daughter. Jaren held up a medal. Pipe. The noble laughed. You would fight me? With that? Lyra stood up beside Jaren. Her hands were trembling, but her eyes were sharp. We're not for sale, she said. You're already sold, the noble hissed. The galaxy just hasn't accepted it yet. He raised his pistol, then dash boom. Blast of light tore through the stall. The fuel drum exploded. Flames roared up the walls. The noble flew backward, crashing into debris. Screams filled the air. One hunter caught fire. The other tried to run, but collapsed in smoke. Jaren coughed, dragging Tally behind him. Lyra pulled at Jaren's collar, helping him to his feet. Outside, the world was glowing orange, now smoke rising into the sky. But they were alive again. Later, as the fire died down and the night grew cold again, the three of them sat near the crater that had once been a home. Jaren's stall was gone, burned to ashes. His food supplies, weapons, tools all destroyed. But no one spoke. Because they had one, because they were still together. Finally, Lyra broke the silence. I don't want to run anymore. Jaren looked at her. She continued, I want to build something again, with my own hands, not just survive. He nodded. Then we start tomorrow. But where? Jaren pointed to the stars. Anywhere. As long as we're not for sale. Sun had not yet risen. The world was quiet, except for the gentle sound of wind brushing through shattered walls. The food stall was gone, reduced to scorched beams and black ash. But beneath the ruined camp, in the corner of a half-collapsed storage bunker, something new was beginning. Jaren sat on the ground with his back against a crate, holding a cracked canteen. Lyra was wrapping a bandage around his arm. Her hands were steady. Her face was calm. But her eyes were storming inside. Tally was fast asleep again, curled against a bundle of warm blankets. Safe for now, Lyra broke the silence. I have something to show you, she whispered. Jaren glanced at her. Is it dangerous? Holly. You're the wrong kind of man. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He simply nodded once. Lyra reached into the seam of her borrowed shirt and pulled out a small, round disc, thin, black, and carved with strange glowing symbols. It shimmered slightly in the low light. A data sigil, Jaren muttered, recognizing the ancient royal tech. That's Creekalap's code. Lyra held it gently in her palm, as if afraid it would vanish. It belonged to my father. She said he gave it to me before our ship fell. He said, if I die, protect this more than your own name. Jaren leaned forward, intrigued. What's inside? Lyra swallowed. Coordinates. Access codes. Hidden caches. He was preparing for collapse before it happened. He didn't trust the Galactic Council anymore. He moved supplies, food, seeds, water recyclers, tools, blueprints. Everything needed to restart. Jaren's breath caught. Restart. What? Civilization, she said simply. Outside, morning broke slowly across the horizon. A soft red glow painted the cracked hills. Smoke from the ruins still curled upward, but the fire had died. The hunters were gone. But more would come. Inside the bunker, Jaren studied the sigil. Do you know how to activate it? No, Lyra said. But I know where to take it. She reached into a cloth pouch and pulled out a torn piece of star map paper. It was hand-drawn, smudged, and faded, but still legible. Eldaj. 3 moons marked with crosses. One circled in red. This system, she said, tapping the red circle. He called it the last garden, said it was a fallback world, unmapped, forgotten, but safe. Jaren looked at her with new eyes. You're not just a royal. You're a key. Lyra met his gaze. And I need someone who can fly. By afternoon, they were packing what little remained. Jaren scavenged wires, batteries, and one remaining ration bar. Tally collected bits of cloth and old lenses. Lyra wrapped the sigil in fabric and tied it close to her chest. They were preparing for a journey, not just across the wasteland, but across the stars. But first, they needed a ship. There's an old scrapyard to sectors north, Jaren said as they walked through the ruins. Mostly wrecked drones and broken haulers. But there's an old military hangar deep inside. If we're lucky, you don't believe in luck, Lyra interrupted, smirking slightly. No, he replied. I believe in backup plans. The journey was harsh. They moved at night, hiding during the day. They avoided other survivors, most of whom had become wild and cruel in this new world. Twice, they heard engines overhead small craft, likely raiders. Once they found a body strung up over a burned cart with a sign, traded nothing, got nothing. Tally cried that night. Zoran let her sleep curled in his coat. But Lyra kept walking. She was no longer just a noble girl trying to survive. She was carrying a future. On the fourth night, they reached the edge of the scrapyard. Mountains of twisted metal reached to the sky, wings from fallen freighters. Crushed escape pods, burned out med shuttles with half-melted INSIGNIAs. In the center stood the hangar. Its doors bent, but still standing. Looks like a tomb, Lyra whispered. Let's hope it's a sleeping giant instead. Jaren replied. They pried open a side panel and crawled through darkness. Inside. It was cold, silent, and massive. Then click. Lyra's single quotes, S. Boot pressed something on the floor. A booming sound filled the chamber. Lights blinked on. Rows of abandoned ships lit up like sleeping beasts, dusty, scorched, but intact. Jaren let out a low whistle. That's Corsair-class stealth jumper, he whispered. Human-made. Pre-collapse. Fast. Strong. Silent. Lyra turned to him. Can you fly it? He smirked. Can I fly it? I trained in it. She grinned. Then she said something that surprised even herself. Then let's go grow a garden, human. The Corsair-class ship shuddered as ancient systems woke from deep sleep. Warning lights blinked on the dusty dashboard. Hydraulic limbs groaned. Engines coughed like an old man waking from a long coma. But Jaren's hands moved with calm focus across the console, flipping switches like he had done 100 times before. It's alive, he whispered, smiling for the first time in days. Lyra sat beside him, the data sigil in her lap. Tally stood behind them, eyes wide, her fingers gripping the back of Jaren's chair. Where are we going now? Tally asked softly. Lyra reached over and placed the sigil into the panel. With a sudden glow, a new map bloomed across the HOLO- screen. One destination pulsed in green, the last garden. The launch was rough. Old cables snapped free as the ship lifted. From the ruined hangar, rusted scaffolding crumbled. Debris rained down. But the Corsair broke through the smoke, rising like a ghost reborn. Jaren let out a breath as the stars opened above them. We're leaving this place behind, T said. No more hiding, no more stalls. No more selling dignity for food. The girls said nothing, but their silence spoke louder than words. They were no longer the same beings who had crawled into his stall days ago. Offering their bodies in shame, they were survivors now, travelers, builders, family. The journey to the hidden world took 2 days in sublight. The nav system refused to jump some old damage in the quantum coil. But Jaren didn't mind. He needed time to think. He sat with Lyra while she studied the ancient maps her father encoded into the ship's database. You know, he said, if what your father stored is real water purifiers, seeds, even fusion units, then this could be humanity's second chance too. Lyra looked at him. Not just humanity's. Jaren tilted his head. It's a chance for everyone left behind, she said. Alien or human, slave or soldier, hungry or hunted. Jaren gave her a long look. Then he said something he hadn't said in a long, long time. I believe you. The last garden wasn't a garden at all. Not yet. The planet looked dead from orbit. Gray plains, black clouds, windstorms sweeping across the surface. But as the ship descended, the scanners lit up subsurface bunkers, sealed storage vaults, hidden greenhouses powered by dormant fusion cores, and most importantly, water. The Corsair landed near a mountain cave. Jaren stepped out first, weapon ready. But there were no raiders, no screams, no mercenaries. Just wind and Destan, the quiet breath of a world waiting to bloom. Lyra and Tally followed. They looked around, blinking at the strange sunlight. This could be home, Tally whispered. Lyra knelt and touched the soil. It will be. The first bunker took hours to unlock. Lyra used the data sigil, tracing her father's encryption pattern from memory. Jaren powered the entrance with an old solar battery. When the door finally hissed open, they stepped into silence. And then, light. The vault was untouched, clean. Rows of supplies still sealed in stasis. Shelves of nutrient bricks, canisters of seeds. Fabricators, portable shelters. Even weapons, armor, and water recyclers. Jaren let out a sharp laugh. He really did it? He planned everything. Lyra walked slowly to the center of the vault and turned. My father gave me this world. But I don't want to rule it, she said. I want to share it. Jaren nodded. Then let's build something better than what collapsed. Weeks passed. They planted crops under the artificial greenhouse. They repaired the solar panels. They hunted small beasts in the wild and purified the river water. Slowly, the world changed from dead to living, from cold to warm. Tally laughed more now. She ran between solar fences, chasing windbugs and naming them all. Lyra worked harder than anyone, filling journals, building shelters, even designing a new flag. A flag with no royal symbols, just a single circle of stars, equal and united. Jaren, he built things with his hands and watched over them like a quiet protector. But one night, as they sat near the growing garden, he finally asked, what happens when others come? Lyra looked up at the stars. They will. Will we fight? No, she said. We will feed them first, then teach them to plant. And only then, give them a place at the table. Jaren smiled. Maybe this was what survival truly meant, not just living after the end, but beginning something new.